This is Pastor Jay with Intelligent Faith 315. As you can see behind me, today we're continuing on with our series, God, the Best Explanation. This is part 4 of the series. We're so glad you've come back to join us. Do encourage you to go over to our mother website, intelligentfaith315.com, if you haven't been there. Also encourage you to go to iTunes and check out some of the podcasts that we've produced here at Intelligent Faith 315. We have a podcast called Reason to Believe. That's reason in the singular, Reason to Believe. Also, the Intelligent Faith radio podcast, and another older podcast called Caruso. Of course, Intelligent Faith 315, we exist to equip Christians with the great resources, tools, and evidence for the Christian worldview, the fact that it's true, it's plausible, and it's evidential. And of course, if you're joining us as atheists, naturalists, materialists, we're glad that you're here as well, because we want to enter into kind of a dialogue with you, hopefully, the comments that you guys send to us, or response videos. And as we continue on today with this series, God, the Best Explanation, today we're going to be getting into part 4 of another feature of our universe, of the reality that we inhabit, that we believe does point to God as the best explanation. So if you'll remember, what we've been doing over the course of the series is we've been looking at various features of reality, various features of the universe that we inhabit, and these features cry out for an explanation. Now, as we said in our first couple of videos in this series, this is a process known as abductive reasoning. Now, that's a big fancy word, but abductive reasoning is something that you use every day, and people around you in society use abductive reasoning every day as well. Inductive reasoning is science. Deductive reasoning is primarily philosophy. But abductive reasoning, which we're using in this series, is quite different. Abductive reasoning is simply where we look at a set of known circumstances, and from the known facts, we try to infer what is the best, most plausible explanation for what we know to be true. So for example, when you take your car to a car mechanic, he uses abductive reasoning because he looks at the symptoms mechanically of your car, and through his experience and knowledge, he infers the most likely solution to your problem. So car mechanics use abductive reasoning constantly. Also, CSI professionals or homicide investigators, they'll arrive at the scene of a crime, much like Sherlock Holmes, let's say, though he's a fictional character, and they would look at certain scenes of the crime and certain evidences that they know to be true, and based upon the known facts, they would then infer the most logical, reasonable explanation. The same thing is also true of doctors. As you come into a doctor's office, he's going to ask you about your symptoms, ask you how you feel, and try to get an understanding of the known biological information, the known biological facts about you and your given situation. And based on those known facts, he is then going to make an inference to the best explanation to explain your symptoms. So in the realm of science, this is typically called making an inference to the best explanation. So just so you understand as the viewer, abductive reasoning is very common in our experience. It's employed all the time in many professional areas of study. And so we're using abductive reasoning in this series of God, the Best Explanation. So the features that we've been talking about that cry out for an explanation, features that are obvious and evident about our reality, and these are features that need to be explained by a good worldview. After all, as we've said in our previous videos, if you have a good worldview, your worldview is going to have explanatory power and explanatory scope. In other words, your worldview, your philosophy of life is going to be able to explain the broadest range of known features possible. That would be explanatory scope, being able to explain the broadest number of features possible. And then explanatory power is kind of the depth or the potency, the ability of your worldview to be able to explain individual features in a very deep and satisfying way intellectually. So, of course, you do want to have a good worldview that can explain these features. So, for example, we've been talking about feature number 1 was the existence of the universe. The very fact that the universe exists cries out for an explanation. Why is there anything rather than nothing? We've done a video on that. Do encourage you to check out that episode of our series. Also, feature number 2, the beginning of the universe. We know as a scientific fact that the universe had a point of beginning a finite time ago. Now, I've been very, very surprised and almost shocked that many of you, our listeners, especially atheists or materialists, you happen to disagree with that. And I would just encourage you to do a little more reading and study, because it is an established scientific fact now in the 20th and 21st century that the universe had a point of beginning a finite time ago, demonstrated by empirical scientific discoveries like the radiation background echo of the Big Bang, the second law of thermodynamics. We covered that in a previous episode, but I was a little shocked to get feedback from our listeners denying the beginning of the universe. If you're going to say that, you're going to put yourself in a category of people that are contradicting known empirical and scientific discovery. And you can do that, I suppose, if you want to, but you're going against the vast body of scientific discovery of the 20th and 21st century. So the beginning of the universe, the fact that we know that our universe had a point of beginning a finite time ago, cries out for an explanation. I encourage you to watch that video as well. Today we'll be getting into the fine-tuning of the universe, the fact that the universe, undeniably, through the constants of physics, has been fine-tuned to an incomprehensible degree to support and sustain complex biological life. So we're going to be getting into the fine-tuning argument today for the universe, and in the future we'll be examining features such as mathematical and logical applicability. Why is it the case that mathematics and logic, number one, even exist, and number two, have applicability? They work, they apply to our universe. Feature number 6, moral objectivity. Why do morals, objective morality, why does that exist? Why does there appear to be an objective moral law within humanity, regardless of race, religion, creed, or geography, that morals do exist and they do happen to be objective? And then number 7, conscious intentionality. Why is it the case that consciousness even exists and that people have intentional states of consciousness? And then feature number 8, it appears in our universe there is theistic possibility, and that also is a surprising, a feature that does give us surprising conclusions as we investigate it. So as I said, we'll be doing fine-tuning today. We've already gone through the existence of our universe, feature number 1, and then we also discussed the beginning of our universe, feature number 2. Do encourage you to check out those episodes of this series, to watch those videos, and just really think about that and investigate it for yourself perhaps a little more profoundly. And so then today, of course, we're going to be getting into the fine-tuning of the universe. Feature number 3, the fine-tuning of the universe. This is something that is pretty remarkable, and if you're watching this, and most of our viewers, I am supposing, and of course from the feedback I would assume that most of you, our viewers on our YouTube channel, at least, are atheists, naturalists, Darwinists, and you of course would probably claim that you're very scientifically minded. And so I would encourage you to really sink your teeth intellectually into this episode, and we may have to actually extend this episode into perhaps part 2 or part 3, because there is a lot of information to cover about this, precisely because the fine-tuning of our universe is an incredibly impressive scientific aspect of the reality that we inhabit. So we're going to be doing a lot of reading and sharing with you information about this fact of the fine-tuning of our universe. If you are one of our viewers and you happen to think or disagree that the universe is finely tuned, again, I'm just simply going to tell you that you're not doing enough reading. The fine-tuning of the universe is so intense, and it is such a reality, that this is why the multiverse theory, for example, was even postulated and put forth, because the fine-tuning presents such a problem, and it makes people so uncomfortable that do not believe in a personal creator God, that the multiverse theory had to be invented, had to be postulated, precisely because the fine-tuning of our universe is such an obvious fact that in the 20th and 21st century is becoming stronger and stronger with our ability to perform scientific discovery about the universe that we live in. So, the fine-tuning of the universe. Premise number 1 of the fine-tuning of the universe, this argument, this line of thinking can take many, many different forms, but the route that we'll go with this actual argument would be the following. Premise number 1, the fine-tuning of the universe is due to either physical necessity, chance, or intelligent design. These seem to be the only viable options regarding the fine-tuning of the universe. Now, as I said, this is known as the design argument. It's also called the teleological argument for God's existence. This is a different version of that. And this argument can take many, many different forms. Perhaps one of the forms could be that complex intelligent design implies a complex intelligent designer. The universe exhibits complex intelligent design. Conclusion, therefore, the universe has a complex intelligent designer. So there's all kinds of forms that this argument can be fashioned in. This, of course, was put forth by Bishop William Paley with his famous watchmaker argument. And he was simply putting forth the case that as you would walk along a sandy beach, if you were to discover a handcrafted pocket watch, or at least one that appeared to be handcrafted and so forth, if you discovered this metal watch with a transparent glass case, these precisely engineered mechanical parts and so forth, you would never assume that that happened by blind, random chance, accidentally, atoms combining and recombining. Bishop Paley, he formed his original teleological argument in that sense. As a watch postulates a watchmaker, so the universe postulates a creator. And of course, this design argument, it not only has many different forms, but it can be applied in many, many different levels. And I'll probably make reference to that later on in the series. You can talk about the fine-tuning of the universe at a cosmological level, at kind of a universal level, which that's what we'll be doing. And this would focus mostly on the initial conditions for the Big Bang and the constants of nature, these mathematical quantities that are constant and are absolutely necessary for life to exist. So the design argument can take place at the universal cosmological level. You can also then drop it down and talk about design and fine-tuning at the terrestrial level. In other words, talking about planet Earth. And for those of you, our viewers, who have not seen it yet, I do encourage you to check out this video, The Privileged Planet, either by purchasing the DVD or even on YouTube. You can just type in The Privileged Planet. And this is really a fascinating documentary which was done by Guillermo Gonzalez and Jay Richards, two PhD scientists, showing that the universe itself exhibits fine-tuning, but they focus specifically on the planet. That our Earth is a privileged planet because of the design characteristics that it exhibits and also its special location within the Milky Way galaxy, that it seems to not only have been designed for life, but designed for observation. So for habitability, but also for observation ability. So to be able to make observations scientifically to learn about the universe that we inhabit. So again, you can drop the fine-tuning argument down to the terrestrial level, talking about the solar system and planet Earth itself. And then you can drop it down even further to talk about fine-tuning, not just universally, terrestrially, but also biologically. Of course, as you look at the human body, or even the individual cell, there is incredible design and specified complexity that exists within the human body. And really, these challenges that have been put forth have not been satisfactorily answered by atheists, materialists, or Darwinists, such as the bacterial flagellum, the ATP synthase, numerous molecular machines that exist at the biological level. We do see incredible design in the human body. If we witness this type of design in some type of a mechanical creation, such as a robot, maybe like a transformer, or in this recent movie, The Pacific Rim, that came out with these Jaegers, if you would see this type of design in the mechanical world that we see in the human body, you would never attribute it to random chance. Every time you see a highly complex, intelligent machine, you know that that machine had an engineer. And it's just unquestionable that the most intelligent and highly designed biological machine in the universe is the human body, and specifically the human brain. These 3.5 pounds of gray matter is the most complicated 3.5 pounds of mass in the universe that we know of. So again, this fine-tuning argument can be applied, and I encourage you to investigate this as our viewers, at the universal level, at the terrestrial level, at the biological level, and then even more so at the informational level. So in other words, this talks about the DNA molecule and the complexity of the encoded DNA language within DNA. And some people have called that the holy grail of intelligent design sciences. So do encourage you to check this out. But as I said today, we're going to be focusing basically on the universe at large, so at the highest level of this argumentation, talking about the physical constants and quantities, the initial conditions for our universe to have come into existence, that they are extremely finely tuned and they actually hang upon a razor's edge for life to be possible. So as you can see behind me, there's basically three possibilities. The fine-tuning of the universe is due to either physical necessity, chance, or intelligent design. Now just quickly, physical necessity, of course, this would say that the universe has to be exactly the way that it is. Now, we know that this is not the case because we could imagine that the universe could have been different. Physical necessity would say that the physical constants and quantities of nature that we observe today have to be exactly like they are, or life would not have been possible. Now, if that were the case, if physical necessity were actually real, if the conditions had to be precisely the way that they are, if the universe could never have been otherwise, well, then that would, of course, be strong evidence for design in and of itself. But of course, we know the universe could have been different. The physical constants and quantities themselves could have been varied. Variation could have taken place. And so life didn't have to arise. The universe doesn't have to be finely tuned for the existence of life, but it is. So physical necessity doesn't seem to be a really, really good option. Let me just read to you a little bit about this option of physical necessity. Dr. William Lane Craig, PhD, theologian, philosopher, he writes this. He says, during the last 30 years or so, scientists have discovered that the existence of intelligent life depends on a complex, delicate balance of initial conditions given in the Big Bang itself. And of course, we're going to be talking about those over the course of this episode. Scientists once believed that whatever the initial conditions of the universe, eventually intelligent life might evolve. But we now know that our existence is balanced on a knife's edge. It seems vastly more probable that a life-prohibiting universe, rather than a life-permitting universe such as ours, should exist. And most people, secular and Christian, theistic or non-theistic, would agree with that the odds for a life-prohibiting universe are vastly, vastly higher than a life-permitting universe. The existence of intelligent life depends on a conspiracy of initial conditions that must be fine-tuned to a degree that is literally incomprehensible and incalculable. For example, listen to this quote from Stephen Hawking. If you do not agree as the listener that fine-tuning of our universe is a reality, listen to this quote from Stephen Hawking himself, at the very least an agnostic and probably an atheist. Stephen Hawking has estimated if the rate of the universe's expansion 1 second after the Big Bang had been smaller by even 1 part in 100,000 million, the universe would have recollapsed into a hot fireball. So, of course, Stephen Hawking admits that the fine-tuning of the universe is evident in the expansion of the universe. That the rate of the universe's expansion is finely tuned, he says, to 1 part in 100,000 million. Very high fine-tuning. British physicist P.C.W. Davies has calculated the odds against the initial conditions for the Big Bang being suitable for later star formation, and this is what helps planets to be able to coalesce together and the matter to clump together and exist. So he has figured out, he's calculated that the fine-tuning for the initial conditions to be suitable for later star formation is 1 followed by 1,000 billion zeros at least. He estimates that a change in the strength of gravity or the weak force by only 1 part in 10 to the 100th power would have prevented a life-permitting universe. Roger Penrose of Oxford University, he has calculated that the odds of the Big Bang's low entropy condition existing by chance are on the order of 1 out of 10 to the 10th to the 123rd power. So that's incredible. That's 10 with 10 zeros behind it to the 123rd power. So there's about 50 of such quantities and constants present in the Big Bang that must be fine-tuned in this way if the universe is to permit life. And I just want to let you know, as the listener, it's not just that these qualities or these characteristics, these values mathematically are finely tuned individually. The ratio of this quality to that quality, for example, the cosmological constant as in ratio to the gravitational constant, in ratio to the speed of light, there is a finely tuned ratio that must also exist. So it's not just that the quantities themselves are finely tuned, the ratio of them to each other is also finely tuned. Now this would be comparable perhaps to walking into a casino, and if you see a bunch of roulette tables, it's not just that each roulette table has to land on a specific number, it's that that number that ball has to land on is going to be in a mathematical ratio to the number of that ball on that roulette table, which is going to be in ratio to that one, which will be in ratio to that one. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this fine-tuning is of a very, very incredibly high degree. And I'm going to be going over, obviously not today, but in later videos on this particular feature of our universe, the fine-tuning. I'm going to be reading through a list of about 35 qualities of fine-tuning that are required for our universe to be able to support life. So if you do not believe in fine-tuning, that's fine, but I'm going to read it to you, and I just want to let you know that theist and non-theistic scientists alike, Christian and non-Christian, agree that fine-tuning is a reality. Anybody that doesn't agree in fine-tuning really isn't up to date with 20th or 21st century science. This is, again, the entire reason why the multiverse theory had to be postulated. But in terms of this question of physical necessity, we don't believe that it has to be this way. Number one, because logically, conceptually, you can think of the universe. I can imagine a different universe. The universe didn't have to be created, let's say, with this many number of atoms. The universe didn't have to be created with exactly this type of structure that we do observe. We can imagine a universe that could have been different. Now, it seems obvious, and we'll get into this, that if the physical constants and mathematical numbers of these constants were different, that life wouldn't be possible in those universes. Nevertheless, we can imagine a universe that could have been different. They would more than likely, all of them, be life-prohibiting universes, but we can imagine a universe that could have been different. P.C.W. Davies, on this aspect of the universe not being physically necessary as we see it today, P.C.W. Davies, he wrote this. He said, quote, "Even if the laws of physics were unique, it doesn't follow that the physical universe itself is unique. The laws of physics must be augmented by cosmic initial conditions. There is nothing in present ideas about, quote, the laws of the initial conditions remotely to suggest that their consistency with the laws of physics would imply uniqueness." And so he finishes, P.C.W. Davies, by saying, "It seems then that the physical universe does not have to be the way it is. It could have been otherwise." And so it seems that somebody trying to use this option to explain away the fine-tuning of the universe that we observe by saying, well, the universe has to be the way that it is, it would seem that that is not a very plausible option. And as I said before, if there is a single physically possible universe, the existence of this incredibly complex world machine might be itself powerful evidence of a cosmic designer. So again, this doesn't seem to be a good option for the fine-tuning of the universe. And so in our next video on the same feature, we're going to be getting into the possibilities of chance and then, of course, intelligent design. Specifically, we'll be focusing on chance. How likely or how probable or improbable is it that our universe and the initial conditions that we observe, how improbable is it that it could have happened accidentally, chaotically, randomly, by chance? I know that many of you, our viewers, of course, do believe that. You probably would hold to a multiverse theory or perhaps to an eternal universe theory or some kind of a cosmic inflationary model, and you perhaps would say that the fine-tuning that we do observe today, if it's real, you would say, it is a product of chance. And we're going to investigate that and see how plausible that is scientifically, mathematically in our next episode. I encourage you to come back and join us for that as we continue to examine this interesting feature of our universe, the fine-tuning of the initial conditions for the universe to come into existence at the Big Bang, and what might the best explanation be for that. I encourage you to come back and join us. Until next time, have an intelligent faith.